Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with more of the Lackadaisy comic. This is, just as a reminder, a donation reward for Sweet Venom. And yeah, last time we started with the first 9 pages, and I don't know how many we're going to end up doing this time. We just kind of took it by ear and just decided to stop it when it felt like a good point to end. So now we're continuing off, and hopefully it ends up entertaining. Because last time I was noting how much more depth and actual, information is given rather than in the animated pilot. The animated pilot basically told us almost nothing. It gave us no real info and just kind of expected us to already know the material prior to seeing it, which was one of my biggest issues with the pilot. It just felt like it didn't give any time to actually develop any of the characters. It just said go and like expect you to just get it. And sometimes that can work. Sometimes it can work where it's like, oh, it just goes and you just understand the characters through their interactions, through their story that you see. You don't need these big backstories sometimes, but that's not always the case. Sometimes you do. Sometimes you need this info to understand what's going on in the world, or just to really have any kind of like connection to it. And that was one of the big issues with the pilot. That is the reason I couldn't get into it. I didn't know these characters and I didn't care. It never gave me a reason to care about these characters, who they were, what they were going through, anything. None of them were interesting enough on their own to change that for me either. Like, none of them, in terms of personality and character and whatnot, none of them really like hooked me in. And I'm not going to get into all my issues with the pilot right here, because I have that entire reaction still up on the channel and all. But yeah. And so seeing how much better the intro and everything is done in the original comic, the fact that it actually gives you information, actually tells you what the fuck is going on, and doesn't just leave you hanging in the dust, like, impressed me. But that was only the first 9 pages, and that was only introductory stuff. We still got more to go. And as I've stated in the last one, and just in the past in general, I'm not a big comic person. Like, comics just don't usually do it for me. The only reason I was like impressed with the first 9 pages, the intro of this comic, was because it gave us this info. It wasn't even about the rest of the content, really. Because one of the biggest issues I have with reading comics is it doesn't elicit any emotion from me. Even if the scene is supposed to be like really sad and depressing or anything, I feel nothing reading it. If it's supposed to be anger-inducing, I don't feel any anger. If it's supposed to be extremely happy and relieving, nothing. And I don't entirely know why that is. But I don't get emotions. Even from like manga, where it's like I know the anime, and I use this example a lot, but like with One Piece, every time I see the scene where Robin yells out "I want to live" in the anime, it makes me cry. Every time I see it. And I've seen it a lot. It makes me cry without any kind of hesitation. I read it in the manga, absolutely nothing. Like, I don't even get, like, my eyes don't even get a little wet from it. Because part of I guess the best explanation I can give is that part of the emotion for me comes from stuff like voice acting, music, motion. And I know that a lot of people feel otherwise. A lot of people love manga and get a lot of emotion from that, and that's great. But I don't. And it may have to do with my autism. I don't know. but it's something that I can't really help. If I just don't feel emotion from it, I just don't. That's not really something I can control. And considering how important emotion is to me in anything I watch or read or whatnot, or play in terms of games, that's a big problem. Though you want to know the weirder part is I can read a chapter book, just words, no pictures, and I can get emotion from that. But for some reason, when it's like in a comic slash manga form, for some reason it just does not do it for me. And this is, of course, on a most part kind of scale. There are exceptions. There are always exceptions. For example, the Legend of Korra comics that I've read, I've actually really enjoyed. And part of that might be because of my strong love for Legend of Korra. Part of it might be because I know exactly how they sound and speak and all. But you could also say the same thing about One Piece. So it's like, I don't know why specifically the Legend of Korra comics are okay with me. There's been a couple of My Little Pony comics that have been okay with me too. Not all of the ones I've tried to read, but some of them. And again, I can't tell you why. I can maybe guess, I can maybe give a thought or a theory, but I don't actually know why. So, yeah. I mean, if you want to call me weird, hell, I know I'm weird. I don't understand why my mind does this. I don't understand why or how it works like this, but it does. So I'm saying all this to say I don't know how this comic is going to go. I don't know if I'm going to end up liking it or not, because I don't know if it's going to elicit anything from me. Because I can't really count just that being impressed by the opening giving me information. That's not actually eliciting any emotion based on the content of the comic, really. It's just, it gave me information that the pilot did not. That is cool. That's not enough. But we'll see how it goes. Like I said, I don't know how many pages we're going to do today. We're just kind of playing it by ear. And I'll end it pretty much when it feels right to end. So, that being said, this is going to be redirected, just to stay safe. I just don't want to risk anything. I don't want to have another example of a channel being terminated unjustly. So, when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black, then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the comic. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. Okay, so we did pages 9 through 13 this time, meaning next time, as we saw at the end there, we're actually going to start getting into the pilot content. So the first 13 pages of this are just not in the pilot at all, which is kind of terrible. Because, like I said last time with the first 8 pages, there is so much information and whatnot there that would have greatly improved on the animated pilot if it had been added in. It honestly would have solved my problems with the pilot, my major problems. It would have solved a lot of that. Not everything necessarily, but a good portion. And the fact that for some reason they chose to start the pilot partway through. I know it's a pilot. I know it's not meant to be like the actual official start of a series. It's just meant to basically get people interested. But the lack of information was so distracting and so harmful to the the pilot itself, in my opinion. And if they had started at the introduction and then gone up to the end of where the pilot normally leaves off, I know it would have been notably longer. But I feel they could have handled it. I feel like they could have they could have even made it only be like 15 minutes longer than it was. And I think it would have just overall improved on things, because just without that information, it just didn't work. Now that we've gone up to that point, though, like I said, we haven't read that yet, but we've gone up to that point where we're going to get into the pilot stuff next time we do this. And so let's talk about, I guess, basically everything we read here, but everything pre-pilot. With what we read here, there wasn't really much. The one main cat guy, Angel Dust voice, Michael Kovac cat. He kind of, like, after escaping the train tracks and everything, went to talk to Miss M, who gave him who not really gave him the mission, but encouraged him to go get the car. He went to get the car with help from Victor, who's just, big, tough Russian cat. The girl cat also helped out convincing him, I guess you could say, even though, like, she really didn't do anything, and it's very apparent she didn't really do anything, but she's taking credit for it, I guess. Victor brings him to the car, fucks off, and that portion is done. That was only like a couple pages, but hey. After that, we have a couple more pages. That's just kind of the aftermath of that. Michael Kovac cat goes back to Miss M, who's throwing her ledger out the window repeatedly and talking and stuff. And yeah, they talk, and it leads into the pilot stuff. It's not much of anything happened. I know we didn't read as much. Like, let's see. We read 5 pages this time compared to the 8 from last time, so 3 less pages. But again, I cut it off because I didn't want to start the pilot stuff, because I didn't know if we would get through all of it. The titles, honestly, you'd never be able to tell, so I wasn't sure. So I decided it'd be better to cut it off there and maybe try to do the entirety of the pilot stuff next time, which will probably be longer than 8 pages. Just saying. But yeah, we'll see as we get to that and everything. But overall, like, I'm still not, like, sold entirely on this. Like, it's definitely, weirdly enough to say, better than the pilot, just in terms of actually telling us shit. But it does still lack the voicing, the soundtrack, just sound effects in general. It's like, I don't know, again, I don't know why my mind works this way. Maybe it's my autism, maybe it's something else, I don't know. But it's like, when I'm seeing it, if I'm just reading a chapter book, my mind fills in that information to some degree. If I'm reading a manga or a comic, for some reason my mind does not. It does not fill in that information, and it just leaves it an emotionless mess for me. And I can't explain it. It makes no sense. I don't get it myself, but that's just how it has been. It's why I tend not to read comics and manga much at all. But hey, we will we will see if this ends up changing things. But I am probably going to make a decision by the end of when we get by the end of the pilot content next time, because I feel like that's probably going to be the best point to do so. We'll get to the end of that, and then I'll decide whether or not it's doing enough for me to continue on with or not. Because that's gonna definitely be the big deciding factor anyway, just because it is gonna be compared to the pilots. I'm gonna see how they compare and how they contrast, what the differences will be, all of that jazz. But in the meantime, tell me in the comments below, what did you think of these 5 pages of Lackadaisy? And thank you so much for tuning in. For now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.